Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the Ideas Global Monthly Panel Series. I'm Evelyn Espinal, your moderator. After over 30 years leading transformational change for multicultural, multinational organizations in the Fortune 100 list, I've decided to join forces with Natasha Rainey, the host of the All Inclusive podcast, and we've launched this premier DEI learning community. This is where the DEI top executives and practitioners are coming together to share insights and co-create solutions for the unspoken and the yet tackled issues that are confronting the DEI field. Our ambition is to accelerate the realization of inclusion, diversity, equity, activism, and social impact. That's what IDEAS stands for us. And today I have a wonderful panel of experts that are going to delve into the question of how DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and its principles align with ESG, environmental, social, and government goals. This is about how we're going to drive comprehensive social responsibility strategies that look inside organizations and outside organizations. And we will discuss how companies are integrating these frameworks to not only enhance corporate policy, but also to promote a holistic approach to organizational success and corporate responsibility. I'm joined by Alia, Felizitas, Ron, and Rubén. I want to give you just a brief taste of who they are, but get quickly to them talking to you directly about their passions and their insights. So joining me today is Alia McCants. She's a Senior Director of ESG and Social Responsibility at Peloton. Her superpowers are people and projects. And for the better part of the last 10 years, she's worked on disrupting entrenched systemic inequities, a woman after my own heart. First, she's been involved in education, and now she's in the health and well-being field. Thank goodness. I also want to introduce to you Felizitas Lichtenberg, the Global Head of Diversity, Inclusion, Wellbeing, and Sustainability at SumUp. She's a highly driven business professional with a strong passion for DEI, ESG, and mental health, with a global and local market focus and a huge amount of business acumen. Felicitas brings an intercultural background to this work with her Eurasian roots and also having lived in and studied in Germany, the US, Britain, and France. Thank you for joining us this morning. We also have Rod McLeod, the Vice President of Social Impact at Braze. Currently, Rod is building the Social Impact Department at Braze. And prior to this role, he led the Braze's communications team, which included building the functions and the team itself while helping lead their IPO efforts. And lastly, but not least, Rubén Alejandro Ramírez, the Global Head of DEI and Social Sustainability at Syngenta Group. He's an accomplished global business leader with 17 years of experience driving strategic diversity, equity, and inclusion, and global transformational changes across global organizations. He's adept at spearheading innovation and data-driven business intelligence, and he's led diversity and inclusion at companies with 60,000 employees worldwide. So to help our audience get to know you better, I wanted to start by asking each of you to introduce yourselves by telling us why you're in this field. What is it that drives you to work in this arena?
I can start.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, Alia.
And Evelyn, I wish it was only 10 years, but I'm actually, going on 21 years at this point in the field. So, I look a lot younger than I am.
Wonderful thing to be able to claim. That's wonderful.
So I lead the social impact work at Peloton. Prior to this, my entire background was in education. And I think what both of these things have in common is I care very deeply about the world that we live in and about creating a kind of world that's fairer. The world as it's currently structured offers more opportunity to certain people and less to other people just based on things outside of their control. And that strikes me as wrong. And the whole year I've been trying to find ways to correct that. I really want a world that my kids can be proud to inherit. And so at first I was working with teachers as the unit of change, and now I'm working in health and well-being. But that's what drives me, and that's what gets me up in the morning.
Fantastic. How about we hear from Felizitas and then Rod and Rubén?
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor and pleasure to be here. So why am I in this field? I actually come from commercial marketing and a bit of IT consultancy before, but it's truly my passion, right? So I grew up as one of the only mixed race kids in the block, let's say, in my city back then. And as you mentioned, I have lived in various countries during my education. I think I experienced both sides, right? The beauty of being mixed race, getting to know different cultures, living in various cultures, meeting new people and so on. And at the same time, the downside of it, also the challenges that come along with it, looking at discrimination and not really feeling belong anywhere. So I think this really has shaped my passion and my belief in diversity and inclusion, that it's good, for ourselves, for business, and just the right thing to do. That's a human rights issue. And I also experienced the benefits of really strong, diverse teams after, of course, also then some storming phases. So this is something about my background. I would like to use my privilege also that I have. So I have experienced discrimination. I also have imposed microaggressions, right? And I think combining the power of two and understanding maybe both sides, I would like to amplify the voices of the minoritized groups and really help to navigate and to build bridges between the different groups, and making us all stronger together.
Thank you so much.
And Rod here. I'll just start out by saying that I think there are two types of people that get into this field. There's the career professionals, which I think we have on this panel. Felicitas, I didn't know we had similar backgrounds, but then there's the transitioners that I consider myself in the same bucket. And I would say my story is more, I joined Braze about 5 years ago to build out their communications team and function. Noticed that they didn't have a corporate social responsibility program, recommended and worked with someone on our people team to recommend that we actually do that. And in doing so, designed a bigger department called Social Impact. It was right before we were about to go IPO. We were going to do the Pledge 1% Equity Pledge, which is pledging 1% of equity over the next 10 years. And we were asked to fit that DEI and CSR kind of in the same category. Worked through some designs with the CEO and a few other people as well. And then, got approved to kind of move forward with this. And in doing the work, I was asked if I was interested in starting this new department. So I would say two things, the reasons why I entered this space. Personally, I've been interested in kind of all the things that we cover, including sustainability and climate. And I always told myself if I was in a position, a leadership position to affect change, I would do that. That's clearly stepping in this role. And the second, it was also a very interesting career opportunity to start a new department at a publicly traded company.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. As Evelyn introduced me, my name is Rubén Alejandro. And to be honest, I started my career in DEI out of pure passion. I'm a quite diverse individual. I'm openly gay. I'm left-handed. I'm Latino living in Europe. I'm bald. I have diagnosed ADHD. So my intersectionalities just got me to really find someone to represent people on different groups, on different minorities that couldn't find representation. I had a career in marketing, commercial marketing, just as Felizitas. And in my company is working in the agro industry. And in the agro industry, there's very few representation of LGBTQI plus leaders. And this is where I wanted to really bring my true self and really make a change for individuals like me that need to find representation to really feel that they belong. So I started my DEI career a few years ago, and I think I find my life purpose. So it's a way for me to really left a better world as I found it, and just to bring a little bit of joy to all of the represented groups that are finding someone to look like them.
That's fantastic. I love the synergies and the commonalities that you find. Rubén and I find that we have a lot of things in common, our dyslexia, our Latino background, where I'm also left-handed. I'm not bald yet, but I think we have a lot of things in common, Rubén, with all of you. So really excited in your field, and you have experience across multiple companies and industries as well. You've even moved different functional areas as you've gone through your careers. It would be great for our audience if they could hear from you the unspoken challenges that you see for DEI and ESG. What are they facing in today's global environment? So what are the issues that you think practitioners of this work are confronting? And what do you think could be done differently? So I'd love to hear from all of you on this. And Rubén, we can start with you, and then maybe Rod, Felizitas, and Alia.
Sure. Thank you, Evelyn. Well, I do think that many people believe we have an easy job and that being in the DI space is really a great place to be because we get to represent and to be in all these events where we talk about things that will make a better world. But it's really a very big challenge because shaping a culture takes a lot of time and there's a very few achievements to be presented because shaping cultures is like running a marathon with no end. So one of the biggest ones that I have faced myself is system accountability. Even DI is an established area in our company. We have a very small team. We are not the biggest resource area, and yet we need the help of everyone in the system to make us to help us make things happen, right? So accountability will be my number one, where we need the leadership accountability for them to role model, to sponsor, and to foster our DA initiatives, and most of it are behaviors. Then also we need the middle management because they are the ones really running the strategy of the business, and they are the ones that can allow the spaces for people to connect to webinars, to be part of the ERGs, to foster a good activation of the ERGs, and also to mentor the ERGs and to be part of the different DI activities, and then individual contributors, where you can see that most of the employees sometimes have the energy, the appetite to promote DI, but once you ask them to complete a training or to do something on their part, you will see that this drive goes really low. So that accountability for me, I think, is one of the biggest challenges we face as professionals.
Yeah, I love that point, Rubén, because what I've seen is if you don't have that accountability, you're running on your own and you look back and no one's following you, right? So ensuring that you are at pace with your organization and that your leadership is with you and behind you and in front of you in this work is critical. Thank you for that.
Yes, and to understand that there's a collective benefit. We're not doing this for us to have a benefit. At the end of the day, the system will benefit and everyone will have a more equitable space where everyone could really thrive by being their own selves.
Fantastic. Rod?
And I'll just, there's many issues. I'll just focus on one. Because I'm sure other people have a long list as well, but I'll focus on stakeholder management. So I'd say both with ESG and DEI, stakeholder management is probably the hardest skill to acquire, but it's also the one most necessary in this role. If you think about the types of companies that focus on ESG that have DEI programs, there's really kind of two. The first one is the easy one, which is if your mission or purpose-based, like Bombas, Patagonia, their mission is to make money to save the world from climate change, right? Things like that. Really easy to kind of sell those set of stakeholders that on why you should do ESG or DEI. And I did cursory Google other people's companies. I think all of us are in the same bucket of for-profit companies that have started social impact, ESG, DEI programs kind of around going public as companies. And it's much harder to operate in that environment because it's not ingrained or part of the culture. It's more of a bolt-on. And so the place we're at Braze is we've been a department for about 2.5 years. And we're trying to more ingrain kind of DEI, ESG, all the programs that fall under social impact into the culture. And this is kind of a long journey versus a short sprint. So I would say the stakeholder management, getting support from employees grassroots up, getting buy-in from leadership to support from a budgetary or sponsorship perspective, different programs that you want to work with their employees on. That is probably the biggest issue. It's the most needed skill to do this work effectively. And as this relates to practitioners, I have a team of soon to be 5 people. Most are at or around kind of the manager level. It's really hard to ask managers to be really proficient in stakeholder management. But if you think about it, they're the ones who are going to be doing the work to socialize the plans and the programs around the business. They're going to have to kind of debate, present, answer questions to different leaders around the company, right? It's really a hard skill set to get. But the silver lining with this is if you get good at it at this level, it will propel your career, whether you want to stay in social impact or you want to go other places in the business. So very hard at first, very hard ramp to kind of understand this and figure out how all the pieces fit together, what motivates different people in your organization. But I would say that that's kind of the biggest capability or proficiency that we really look at here.
I'm very aligned with that thought. I love this concept that you said, that it's a bolt-on, and instead of having it be a bolt-on as a competing priority, that it should really be interwoven. And the fact that you're absolutely right. People that are in this space develop influencing skills, business acumen, right? Really being able to prioritize in the right way for the business. And that makes them much more marketable for other careers, even to continue to move up in this field or to transition into another area in the business. Great, thank you. Felicitas.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what was said 100%. And I just want to add, so I think one thing is maybe taking one step back is companies really need to be honest with themselves, right? Do they want that or not? I also experienced many companies either still not having understood why it's important, or, first saying they want that, but then in case, there's too much change or at least a little bit change, right? They back off and realize actually they're not ready for that. I think that this whole transparency and the honesty with with themselves and then with the potential future employees is super crucial. And then once this is defined, also acknowledging, right? This whole topic has been going on for 100 years. I know some people say, oh, it needs time, we just started, but actually it's a conversation and a fight, let's say, for hundreds of years. And, acknowledging that systemic and structural racism, homophobia, ableism, ageism, and so on and so forth exist. And, being really vulnerable about the own biases and admitting we need to learn and get better from the leadership team, for example, also is really one of the most crucial aspects in that what often I see is missing in organizations. So you also said before, right, the whole leadership support, the buying and the actions is crucial there, but also if a company decides to drive D&I or ESG also forward, it really is about also finding a best person. Now my light switched off. Sorry, I'm in this booth. Who can drive the initiatives forward, right? And I mean, sometimes I find people think D&I is like this, special role. Of course, it's special. I mean, I love my role. I'm very biased here and passionate about it. And the skill set you need also in sales, marketing, operations, engineering, right? It's quite similar in terms of business acumen and really influencing skills, stakeholder management, data understanding, and so on. What was mentioned before is really crucial to have that. And also looking at culture and collaboration. So one thing often is we can do various initiatives, policies, and so on, but if we don't challenge when microaggressions and inequities play out in meetings, for example, if we don't collaborate with, for example, the people team, but also with the operations and sales, right, where actually a lot of potentially microaggressions and inequities can play out, then of course it's a very difficult job to fulfill. So the whole collaboration with different teams, cross-functional, is really also crucial.
Yeah, I love that you went right out and named it, right? I think it's difficult to work on something if you're not clear on what it is that you're trying to fix. And the fact that there are a lot of isms built into the way corporations exist today, that's something that not many people are interested in talking about. And as ED&I practitioners and ESG practitioners, I think we at least owe it to ourselves to understand how those systems operate within the company, and then know that that's what you're ultimately trying to dismantle. Yeah. In today's environment, we're seeing, Alia.
Yeah, I mean, I would just build on, I think, what I heard from each of my fellow panelists. So the thread that I heard was the importance of managing one's internal stakeholders. And I 100% agree with that. I think that being able to bring people along with you is just a necessary skill set. It's kind of table stakes in work that we do. You have to be able to just plant seeds and sparks of inspiration across multiple levels of the company, whether you're speaking to the board or whether you're speaking to a very junior team member, to align them around the vision for what you're doing. So I agree with that. I would also add that I think that Peloton would self-describe as a purpose-driven company. Like, the product that we do inherently makes people feel better and able to show up well in the world. And so we have self-described as a purpose-driven company. And when you're conducting ESG or social impact, or I would even maybe speak on behalf of my DEI colleagues and say that work, the challenge isn't maybe like inspiring people, although you definitely do need to bring them along. It's like channeling all of that energy into a direction for impact. So one of the greatest challenges I think that I have faced is there's so much energy and there's so much enthusiasm about equity and about, you know, diversity and about social impact, and it's corralling all that energy into a unified direction and then keeping that direction, keeping people moving in that direction in order to generate positive impact, because otherwise it becomes really scattered and we don't have the impact that we want to. So I'd say like that's been a challenge. I would say that probably would hold true for a Patagonia or Bombas, to Rod's point. And then the other challenge that I haven't heard that I would maybe just lift up for consideration is the environment in which we're currently operating. So currently, you know, on August 14th, 2024, none of us are immune to the state of, I've heard it described as like a perma crisis that we're all in. Like every other day, there's something that, you know, threatens progress or like puts companies on the back foot or that we have to adapt to. And it could be global, it could be here in the US, it could be, you know, an election, or it could be an invasion, or it could be some violation of human rights somewhere. And we have to be able to respond to that. So a big part, I think, of our role is to be able to read the room, to understand what the tea leaves are saying about the conditions in which we're operating, and to be able to make sure that we're planting sustainable structures accordingly so that no matter what's happening externally to our work, we're still able to carry forward the most important work that will last over the long term.
I think you're so right about this state of crisis that we've been in. It's crisis after crisis after crisis, and it feels like we're navigating this sea of instability. And within that, we're experiencing pushback to both ESG and DEI. If we look at somebody like an organization like SHRM deciding to drop the E, so it feels like there's some desire to maybe go stealth and think about how do you navigate in today's environment in a way that doesn't trigger others. But then at the flip side, when you think about ESG, no one's talking about dropping the S, right? There's not, those conversations aren't happening. So talk to us a little bit, Alia, I really wanted to stick with you because you brought in this sense of what's happening in today's climate. Talk to us about the strategies that companies are using as they navigate their risk profile and as they walk that tightrope between wanting to create, you know, cater to public opinion, wanting to protect their investors' return, and express their authentic company values, right? Because that is always at the underpinning of this work. And I'd be curious what tips you have about how our practitioners can be navigating this instability.
Yeah, I mean, first, I would not be a self-professed expert in this. I think I'm swimming through the same waters that all of us do. But the things that I think about, and that I've also heard from other people who are in this field, are, you know, one of it is making sure that you do have your support. So when we were speaking earlier about stakeholder management, that's not just so that we can carry the work forward. It's also to make sure that the people who need to have your back in rooms where you might not be have your back. So, you know, check in with your board and say like, hey, like here's the environment that we're seeing, you know, what steers do you have for our work? And you want to hear them say, this is the work that's most important to us. We are undeterred in this work. You want to hear them say things like that because that gives you permission to run fast. So definitely managing your stakeholders. Also, I would just say, I mean, I'm going to sound like an auntie because I am an auntie, but you have to keep the main thing. So there's a lot of noise around our work right now, but if you know what the values are that you're seeking to express, and if you know the ultimate world that you're trying to build, the path to get there is really, really clear. So I would say those two things, like make sure you're prioritizing the things that are most important, and then make sure that you are using those influencing and like partner management skills to shore up the support that you need.
That's great. Thank you. Rubén, I'm curious about your point of view on this.
Yes, I would agree with Alia on how we need to manage our stakeholders. We're living in a world where viral communications are polarizing populations because that's the best way to really make an argument. And for me, there's different elements. The fact that communications are being viralized and where one statement can become a fake truth. And then also situations where we're having a exchange of generations where boomers are leaving the workplace and also leaving probably country leadership positions, and then we have Generation Z and Generation Alpha coming to the workplace. and then are coming with more open minds, and they are really coming with a diversity that cannot be hyped anymore. And I think it's very important for us to understand that we're shaping the new way of working in the different workplaces. And because of this, we need to be able to bring and review our strategies with our stakeholders for us to understand where have we learned, where are we probably stepping up our game. I do believe that DEI professionals now we're getting more involved with the business matters, and also it's very important for us to always understand our business, always understand our industry, and how DEI is lived in the different industries. I'm coming from a very male-oriented industry where probably priorities are different from the ones in the fashion or makeup industry. So we need also to make sure that we are addressing the concerns that are relevant to our industry for us to create strategies that will really bring a return on investment to our business. I always say the same thing. Without the business, there's no DEI programs or ESG programs. So we really need to make sure that everything that we're doing is benefiting the business, because that's the only way we're going to be able to bring more inclusive and equitable practices in everything that we do and in the way we retain, attract, and also develop our talent. I think that communicating effectively is very important because, as you say, there's a lot of backlash, but this is just the loud voices. If you see the statistics, there are more companies investing more in their DEI and ESG practices than the ones that are eliminating them. So if we are open and transparent with our boards, talking about the matters, and then showing the real information and also reviewing our strategies, we will have a great impact in how to defend our spaces, which we need to do it. Because, as I said, communication is quite biased at the moment, but we need to bring the facts and also the benefits that these practices bring to our businesses.
Yep. What I hear you... Oh, go ahead, Rod.
Yeah, I would say I agree with everything that Alia and Rubén both said. I would say it's very easy to be negative in this space, given all the headlines and all the trends that you see that are anti this, anti that. And I'm trying to be more positive. I just had a son a couple months ago, but I'd say the opportunity and the positive way of looking at this is it gives you more time to design different frameworks and crystallize your thinking in a way that both is foundational and that can scale with you throughout the next couple of years. We did a lot of work doing this over the last year. I think this set us up really well in terms of how we think about different pillars that align with what falls under our remit, for example. I think long-term, your programs are more durable. They could scale. They're not just going to be here for this year, right? And if you think about the coordination and the stakeholder management that's involved with a lot of these anti-DEI, anti-ESG teams, that means that your team is going to have better alignment both with legal, finance, all these other departments where those relationships may not have been stronger, right? And so that means that you're not only going to have better programs, better frameworks, but you're also going to have better support throughout the business of people who understand what you're going to do and support what you're going to do as well. So I would think about it this way. The companies that are still investing in this space right now, I am very excited in the next 1, 2, 3 years to see kind of the progress that we make collectively as a group, because I do think that the results and the output that is going to come from this phase is going to result in a much more kind of mature, and to what Rubén was saying, much more aligned with the business in a sustainable way.
Yeah. So what I hear you guys talking about is, it feels like practitioners in DEI that are inside corporations right now, they're having this sort of Dorothy in Kansas moment, right? There's a tornado at the door, the house is spinning, and they're trying to navigate between when do I speak forcefully and vocally, speak the truth to power, versus when do I have an action plan that is more longer term, that is not reactive, that's going to continue to move progress forward and really look at the system changes that we want to make, right? And essentially, they need to know how the political winds are moving in their organization and where the next twister is going to be coming from. I think from what you've all said, what I gather is that the first and best resource for DEI practitioners is that they need to understand the truth of their current reality, right? Are people behind me? Is this just table stakes? Are we going to get the support that we need? And they need to have a clear stakeholder management plan that not only tells them where their leaders are starting off, but also what is it going to take to move leaders forward, right? Because individuals have different things that motivate them, and you can't have a one-size-fits-all strategy. I think that's a fantastic message for our practitioners. Felizitas and Rod, I wanted to hone in on this idea of how ESG and DEI are integrating. And I know that both of you in your companies, you've approached this work from different angles. So Rod, I understand that your organization started with ESG. You're really clear on, what's required for reporting, where's the transparency that we need to do. So that's a much more mature focus. And DEI is coming into that space with you. And Felizitas, I understand that for you, it really started with DEI. What is our purpose? How are we going to ensure equity and fairness in our processes? And now social impact is coming into that. So it'd be really great if both of you could talk to us about your different approaches and what do you see in terms of the benefits of where DEI and ESG really do need to interact.
Yep.
Sure, maybe I can start. So what we do at SumUp is we have created a 3E framework, which is environment, of course, education and entrepreneurship. That's also our vision and mission, right? We want to empower our merchants all over the world, small merchants. And what we try to do there is, one is we have also pledged to donate 1% of our net revenue generated by solar devices to the people and the planet. And here, environment is one thing, right? But we really want to increase our impact, combining it with the education piece and entrepreneurship piece, so the social impact. What we do there, for example, is in India, we collaborate with an NGO reaching 10,000 kids per year because we finance a tech platform there. And in Brazil, Chile, Colombia, we have reached over, I think, 260 students by now, underemployed or unemployed. And what I try to do there is really focus on targets, right? Because we know that in some countries, it's at parity, right? Looking at the computer science studies and looking at the female share in other countries due to history and society, it's by far not, right? So we see differences, history shapes societies also. So what I try to do in Latin America is also to say we want at least 60% girls, at least 60% Black or Pardo, which we described there, people from the community, but also inclusive of LGBTQ+, people with disabilities. So we try to focus on the minoritized groups and the most vulnerable groups in giving education, providing a chance to find a job then in the tech world. And I'm super happy to share that 80% will find employment afterwards there. But we also, for example, collaborate with the Monte Azul, which is I think some people don't like the word favelas anymore. It's in the favelas or communities, really to empower them through culture project, educational project, musical project, and psychological support. So we actually really focus on looking at globally, right, where which countries are most vulnerable, let's say, or where the poverty is biggest, where systemic racism is also the greatest, and how can we then support the most vulnerable groups in giving them a chance, right, and getting education. And then, of course, on the environment side, what we do is we remove plastic from the rivers, which probably many also do. We protect rainforest and also support then the communities with clean cooking, so cook stoves as an example. And on the entrepreneurship side, also again in Brazil, but also especially India also, we empower 500 women, female entrepreneurs in rural India per year to really educate them and, empowering and ensuring that they can live a sustainable life with a sustainable income going forward. So that's how we combine DNI and ESG, really bringing in the whole minoritized groups, right, vulnerable communities into the game. And we're super happy. Of course, we have much more to do. So we are not there yet, but we're also quite happy with the progress we have made so far.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Rod, are you with us? Yes.
I was on mute. I'm the person who did that. So before I get started, I'd say great program, Felizitas. Those are super awesome. One point of clarification: when we started the social impact department, both ESG and DEI were formalized into having clear owners for the first time. And for those who aren't familiar with ESG, I know that depending on who you ask, they have a different definition of what it is. ESG does stand for environmental, social, and governance. It's a way for investors to look at which companies are sustainable or more ethical. If your hypothesis for investing is companies that are more sustainable or ethical are going to do better and their stock prices are going to increase at a faster rate. I would say the main difference there is ESG at the end of the day, it's really about the raters and rankers. It's how they evaluate and how they literally give you a score for how programs that fall under each of those three letters are doing, right? And if you think about the connection point for DEI, any DEI program, any CSR program, that's really going to live under the social of what's there. So DEI programs that do well there, and there's different ways that you can game any system, right? If you have good DEI programs that you could talk about, you score higher. That could be an ABC ranking, that could be a number ranking. But I would say the DEI programs kind of support what goes into an ESG score in general. If you think about the commonality of how to build these programs and kind of the reasons why you would do so, I know it's different for each company here. Kind of the main one that Braze has indexed on is this notion of community and culture. And also if you think about talent attraction and talent retention. I'd say the ESG part of it and the way that we look at it, it's more marketing. We publish 3 ESG reports since being a publicly traded company. We have an ESG microsite. There's different web pages that talk about these different initiatives that kind of ladder up into ESG. If you think about it from a community standpoint or a talent standpoint, it's really how you attract talent. No one is going to join your company solely because you have an ESG or a DEI program, but it's going to be one of the supporting reasons, right? If you think about how you prioritize that, things like salary, kind of opportunity, all those things are always going to be the first and foremost. But I have heard from other people anecdotally, the fact that we have ERGs, the fact that we invest and have a real department on this has been a positive and factored into their decision to join Braze, for example. And if you really think about DEI, that's really kind of around retention. If you think about it, we take an inclusive first approach to DEI, which means that we try to design our systems and processes to be inclusive by nature. That does have to be supported with the E word, equity, which I know is a bit controversial right now. But I do believe that if you don't have kind of proactive efforts to support or lift up certain populations or communities that have traditionally been underrepresented or systemically left out on purpose, the process and the policy updates are only going to do so much. So, DEI is a great retention tool in terms of the communities you have with your ERGs. It's great in terms of, different learning and development opportunities, internal mobility, all those things that you could design to be inclusive, but you could also work on different equity programs as well.
Excellent. So
Evelyn, if you allow me to add a comment, with all the new regulations that we're having in Europe, like the CSRD and the CSDDD, where we now need to report and need to bring due diligence on the way we're acting as companies, I think there's a bigger interaction with the S and DEI, where companies like in Syngenta Group, we're trying to reach out to our value chain, and this means our suppliers, for them to be implementing also practices or initiatives and programs in DEI, for them to be able to score better in the way they are impacting the community positively. So I think that more than ever, there's a bigger scrutiny to companies on how well they're impacting communities. So we really need to make sure that DEI programs are well established and also are well communicated to stakeholders and to the whole value chain for us to keep promoting inclusion, equity, and in the way we're acting to society. So everything comes together in the end with the ESG report, and of course having a higher ESG report will help companies to bring that return on investment that we're looking, but also is the way that you're impacting your partners and the others that you do business with, for us to have a great practice in the way we're establishing the society.
Fantastic. And I want to jump into the audience because we have a question around measures and metrics. And I'm wondering if anyone's interested to tell us a little bit more about how your company is measuring. What is your team focused on?
Yeah, super happy. I love the data question and the metrics. So what we do at SumUp is there are two things, or some more. But one is, of course, we take a look at what do we have in the systems, right? In the HR systems, which information. So often gender, so male, women, for example, and age and nationalities and so on are available there. So we take a look at that. And what we also do is once a year, we run a global D&I survey, which is voluntary, and we ask questions around ethnicity, sexual orientation, identity, including, of course, LGBTQ+, disability, and so on and so forth. Ethnicity, I think I mentioned that. And we also take a look at the ENPS survey that the people team runs, where we embedded a question on inclusion, and of course conduct also focus groups. So we have the quantitative data and the qualitative data, and this really helps us to understand what is the census of a country, right? What is the representation of different categories, or also the global census? For example, we know that there's about 7 to 10% people that identify as LGBTQ plus globally, worldwide. At SumUp, we know that we have 18% representation, so that's great. We also know, obviously, it's parity, right? Looking at the female representation or male representation, but we also see we're at 44%, for example, and only 21% representation on executive steps. So our clear ambition is to have at least 30% female share in our shortlist for executive roles, which we have also fulfilled. So we do really measure the clear ambitions that we have, and constantly throughout the year, where we see where have we made progress, where not, and this is across our, of course, company, but also per market, per tribe or team, and this is what we do on a really regular basis. So super happy for the question, and if you have any questions, also reach out. I know some people are sometimes afraid to raise those measures or to send out a survey, but we have been doing it, and this has been quite well.
Great. And Alia, I think you wanted to answer to this question of metrics as well.
Yeah, mostly because measurement is one of my love languages, and so I love speaking in impact frameworks and how we measure. And so anytime I get to nerd out, this is like a great moment. I would agree. So at Peloton, and I think in other workplaces, we've always sort of consistently measured the diversity of our team members and the experience that they're having. I think that's just table stakes. One of the things that I've noticed, and this kind of goes back to the previous question, but one of the things that we know about ESG is that there is this like history, there's a lot of rigor around what you measure. There's like a lot of different reporting that you have to do. With DEI, there are a lot of best practices, but the external rigor is not quite there yet. And so you kind of have to create your own measures. One thing that we have done is, I think a lot of companies will measure their external impact through output. So that's like the number of people that you're reaching, like the number of organizations that you funded, the amounts that you're funding, and these are things that are easy to measure and easy to report on. We should definitely do those things. I've also seen a trend, and this is what we've started to move. This is where we started at Peloton. We've seen a lot of companies start moving that direction. Is really focusing on outcomes. So trying to define what the change that you're seeking to affect is, and finding ways to measure that change beyond just the number of people that you're reaching. So for us, we're trying to measure the actual percentage change in someone's knowledge, attitudes, or behaviors. And so if you look in our impact framework, there's the inputs, which is our investments, the brand, the work of our nonprofit partners. There's the output, and that's the number of people that we're reaching. And then there's the outcomes, which is the percentage change in certain behaviors that correlate with health and well-being. And once we start to measure the outcome, I think we'll start to see, and again, this is like, you have to gauge your own risk profile about what you report, but you start to see like how companies are actually affecting change in the world to create the worlds that we want to see. So I wanted to make sure to leave you with that note.
Ron, Alia, Rubén, Felicitas, thank you so much. This has been rich with tips, insights, generating ideas. You really have my brain percolating. So I'm just so grateful that you were able to join us for this session. And to our audience, thank you so much for joining us as well. We will have our next session on September 11th. The focus there will be on people analytics and DEI and how that can help organizations have holistic growth. So on behalf of Ideas Global, I want to thank everyone for joining in and my illustrious panel. I think you guys were absolutely amazing. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you, everyone.